Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. It began with laughter, measured, elegant, and laced with contempt. The kind of laughter only an empire forged over millennia could afford. From high above Earth's blue curve, the Yolari women watched. Cloaked in the geometric precision of a ship orbiting silently above Earth's exosphere, for figures stood in a viewing dome, peering down at a human planet like anthropologists studying amoebas under glass. The Yolari did not study planets for conquest or diplomacy. They studied for sport. Curiosity, perhaps, but mostly amusement. Primitive, Zelina murmured, brushing a fingertip across the glass, her voice even clinical. Her dark violet eyes scanned the continents below. They still rely on combustion propulsion. They also still breathe through penetration, Vetra added with a smirk, reclining lazily against the console behind her. Her voice dripped with venomous amusement. Imagine depending on friction for reproduction. Inefficient, messy, emotionally volatile, said Tanari, the largest of them, her arms crossed like a coiled weapon. She stood rigid, armored more heavily than the others despite the peaceful nature of the mission. Their males cry, in public. Fascinating, whispered Siri, her voice a soft thread in the cold air. There's something deeply unfiltered about them. The other three turned to look at her. You're not sympathizing, are you? Zelina asked, brow arching with the faintest trace of a smile. That would be unfortunate. No, Siri replied quickly. Just curious. The Yolari did not feel sentimentality. Their culture had long evolved beyond irrational emotions. Logic, clarity, and genetic perfection guided their way. Their empire stretched across 8 systems. War had been replaced with genomic superiority. Every Yolari was designed, shaped, and elevated. And yet here they were, orbiting a backward little blue planet, preparing for a month-long cultural observation disguised as a field study. It was a rite of passage among the elite, a test of endurance and discipline. Watch how the primitives lived, breathed, fought, and sobbed. Laugh, learn, leave, deploy cloaking, prepare insertion coordinates. Came the automated voice from the vessel's core. The ship slid through Earth's atmosphere like a sigh, invisible and untouchable. It hovered above a university city nestled between forested hills and mirrored towers. This location had been selected carefully, fertile with young, active humans in their intellectual prime, if such a thing could be said of humans. By the time the sun rose over the red brick architecture of the University of Crestmore, for new women appeared on campus. Their human forms were flawless, constructed from millions of data points, synthesized with cloaking nanites. They walked among the Earthlings wearing jeans, jackets, even clunky student backpacks. Their skin tones varied, their features mathematically perfect, and their accents designed to match no single region. To the untrained eye, they were simply international students, albeit distractingly beautiful ones. Try not to break any of them, Tanari muttered as they entered the lecture hall. Inside, Earth's young adults slouched in hoodies, tapped at laptops, chewed on plastic pens. A professor droned about cultural diffusion and early human tribes. This is the intellectual peak of their species. Zelina whispered. It explains so much, Vetra replied under her breath. Yet as they took their seats, Siriai's gaze lingered on a young man, seated near the back. He wasn't exceptional, not in the Yolari sense. Average height, tan skin, a mess of dark hair. He wore a threadbare gray hoodie and scribbled in a notebook with real ink. He wasn't watching them like the others were. He wasn't watching at all. Name, Daniel Reyes, Sirai muttered, her ocular interface scanning him silently. Low priority. Vetra responded instantly. No records of distinction. No athletic or intellectual awards. No reproductive history. And yet, he's the only one not staring, Sirai mused. The others ignored her. Later that afternoon, the 4 Yolari met in a secure, cloaked apartment complex fitted with hidden tech from their ship. First impressions? Zelina asked, sitting cross-legged in a field of floating data streams. Emotional instability confirmed, said Tanari. I saw 2 males engage in physical confrontation, over a spilled drink. Sexual energy is rampant, Vatra said with a half-laugh. They form attachments within hours. There's no genetic selection, just lust. They speak of love as if it's divine, Zelina added, a myth used to excuse poor mating decisions. Then, turning to Siri, she asked, "And you?" Siri hesitated. They feel, constantly, loudly, even when they're quiet. It's chaotic, but not without value. Vatra rolled her eyes, spoken like an empath with a broken sensor. "I'm not broken," Siri said, her tone flat. Silence fell. Eventually, Zelina waved her hand and the conversation closed. "We observe. We log. In 29 Earth days, we return. Keep interactions minimal. No entanglements." For the first week, the mission went as planned. The Yllari observed human behavior, mocking it in private. They attended parties, joined study groups, sat in cafes. The males were eager, predictably so, their thoughts painted across their faces. Even women on Earth, so varied in dress, posture, and confidence, seemed hopelessly chaotic to the Yllari mind. And yet, Daniel Reyes remained still, quiet, observant. Siri passed him often, once in the library, where he sat alone reading a book that had no screens, just paper and ink. "You don't use tablets?" she asked, sitting down across from him, uninvited. Daniel looked up. His eyes were dark and unreadable, but not unkind. "I like the smell of old pages." Siri blinked. "Scent has no information value." "Maybe not," he said, smiling slightly, "but it feels like memory." They said nothing for a moment. "I'm Siri." "Daniel, you're different," she said bluntly. "So are you," he replied, just as bluntly. That night, Siri said nothing of the conversation to the others. She lay awake in the dark, running algorithms she didn't fully understand. By the second week, Zelina noted Siri's pattern. "You keep drifting near the same male." "Coincidence," Siri replied. "I don't believe in coincidence." Siri looked away. "You told me to observe. I'm observing." But her logs became erratic. Less data, more questions. She didn't understand why Daniel smiled when others didn't, or why he stayed behind after lectures to help clean, even when no one noticed. She didn't understand why her internal biometrics reacted subtly when he was near, and she didn't understand the dreams. Human dreams were chaotic, illogical, but now Siri dreamed in flashes. Soft breath, warm skin, voices wrapped in vulnerability. By day 16, the others noticed. "Is this a joke to you?" Vatra snapped. "Do you want to become a failed experiment?" "I've followed protocol," Siri said. "You're bonding," Tanari growled. "I'm learning," Siri replied, her voice sharper than before. "Something none of you are doing." Zelina watched, quiet. Then, "Be careful." But it was too late. That afternoon, Daniel met her again, this time outside under a willow tree on the edge of campus. "I know you're not from here," he said simply. Siri didn't move. "Why do you say that?" "You ask too many questions, and none of them are the right kind." She stared at him, heart rate increasing, a flutter of something unclassified in her chest. "And what are the right questions?" He leaned in, voice low. "Why are you pretending to be something you're not? And what do you think you'll find here?" For the first time in her long engineered life, Siri had no answer. "I should go," she whispered. He reached out and took her hand gently, his warmth like a nova under her skin. "You don't have to." She pulled away, ran, back to the apartment, back to safety, back to logic. Inside, Zelina was waiting. "You touched him." "It was nothing." "You are changing." "I don't know what's happening." Zelina looked at her for a long time, and then, for the first time, her voice softened. "None of us do." Below them, on Earth, Daniel stood alone beneath the tree, his hands still tingling. Above him, the stars remained silent. But something had shifted. The game had begun to play by new rules, and the watchers were no longer just watching. Siri didn't mean to go back to him. Not really. But the gap between intention and action had grown unstable in her. Logic used to be her orbit. The the fixed path by which she understood existence. Now it fractured, bent, warped, and in the center of that strange gravitational pull stood a human named Daniel. The others didn't need to say anything. They knew. Her vitals were erratic. Her empathy receptors, once pristine, were dampened and fluctuating. She was changing, not just emotionally, biologically. They didn't speak of it aloud. Yulari protocol dictated non-interference until the return window. That left them in a fragile stalemate, watching Siri drift ever closer to the anomaly. Daniel Reyes was the anomaly. He met her again under the same willow tree, this time with a thermos of tea and 2 paper cups, as if this were something they did. "It's mint," he said, pouring carefully. "I read once it helps with memory clarity." She took the cup, stared at it. "I don't need assistance with memory." "I figured," he said, sitting beside her. "You always seem like you already know everything." "I don't." He smiled. "Good." They sipped in silence. She didn't tell him she could hear his heartbeat, irregular and human and oddly comforting. She didn't tell him her skin was calibrating itself to match temperature thresholds based on his proximity. She didn't tell him she dreamed of touch. Instead, she asked, "Why do you always come alone?" Daniel shrugged. "I like to listen to things people don't hear when they're talking. Trees, wind, quiet thoughts. I think silence says more than people think." Silence had never held meaning for Siri. It was merely the absence of signal. But with him, it thickened, warm, weighted, almost musical. It made her forget to scan, forget to report. She began skipping team debriefs. Her logs turned sparse, vague. When Zelina confronted her, Siri's only answer was, "He's not like the others." Zelina stared at her with something almost like pity. "They're all like him. You just haven't seen the cracks yet." But Siri had seen cracks in herself, and they weren't fractures. They were doors. By week 3, Daniel knew she wasn't from Earth. He didn't press her to explain it in scientific terms. He didn't flinch. He asked questions no one ever had, not even her own people. "What do you feel when you're with me?" he asked one night, sitting on the rooftop of her false apartment, stars painting his face. Siri didn't answer for a long time. "My systems say nothing, but I feel everything, and I don't understand it." He took her hand, fingers interlocking. "Maybe you don't have to." She didn't resist. That night, the logic barriers that had once dictated her every movement dissolved. There was no protocol for what happened next, no precedent. Their connection was not violent or rushed. It was tender, curious, human, skin on skin, heartbeat to heartbeat. Her mind open in a way her own civilization had taught her was impossible. Afterward, she didn't log it. Couldn't. But Vetra already knew. In the lab she'd hidden beneath the floor of the cloak department, she analyzed subtle shifts in Siri's biochemistry, unprompted hormonal cascades, DNA markers firing in new directions, and then something that made her drop the scanner. Replication. Self-sustaining cellular replication. Impossible. "Zelina," Vetra said that night, voice cold. "Siri is pregnant." Zelina's face was unreadable. "That can't happen. Our genomes are engineered being fertile outside species boundaries." "It happened." Zelina closed her eyes. "Does Siri know?" "No, but she will soon." Tanari entered then, having already pieced it together from altered mission logs and Siri's erratic patterns. Her face was stone. "This is an abomination," she said. "Termination is required." "She's not a threat," Vetra said. "She's a mutation," Tanari snapped. This was never meant to happen. Zelina remained quiet. Then she said, "We don't act yet. Not until we understand." Later, Siri found herself standing in front of the mirror in the apartment, staring at her own reflection. Her skin looked the same. Her eyes, still the deep lavender of her kind, but something beneath it pulsed differently. Daniel entered behind her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. His touch didn't surprise her anymore. It grounded her. "You're shaking," he said softly. "I'm afraid." He waited. "I think I'm changing in ways I can't reverse," she whispered. He rested his forehead against hers. "Then we change together." It broke her. In that moment, everything that had been built into her, resilience, superiority, cold clarity, shattered. She was Yulari, yes, but more than that, she was Siri, and Siri loved. The next day, she told him, "I'm carrying your child." Daniel went still, then sat, then laughed, one short, breathless sound, not of joy but disbelief. "You're serious." "Yes." He swallowed. "But how?" "I don't know. It should be impossible. It is impossible." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Is it dangerous? For you?" "I don't know that either." He stood, then knelt before her, placing a hand lightly against her stomach. "Then we figure it out. Together." She cried. Silent tears. Yulari didn't weep. Siri did. The next night, Tanari confronted her. "You've jeopardized a mission." "It wasn't a mission anymore. You placed us all at risk. The council will demand answers." "I'll give them." Tanari drew closer, voice a low warning. "They'll take the child. Study it. Dissect it." Siri stepped forward, something new in her posture, something fierce. "They'll have to go through me." Vetra appeared then, uninvited. "What if we don't let them?" Tanari turned. "What are you saying?" "I've been studying the changes. The fetus is stable. Its genome is something I can't fully map, hybridize in a way that shouldn't work, but does. It could be an evolutionary leap, and if we allow the council to destroy it, we may never understand what we've lost." Zelina appeared next, summoned by intuition. "Is this mutiny?" she asked calmly. "It's survival," Siri said. "No," Zelina replied. "It's evolution." That night, all four women stood in the dark, no longer observers, no longer superior. They were something else now, uncertain, exposed, and deeply, deeply human in ways they could not have predicted. And yet the sky above began to shimmer. A signal blinked in Zelina's retina. A council probe entering orbit. "They're coming," she said. Siri didn't flinch. Daniel stepped forward beside her. "Let them," he said. And for the first time, Zelina didn't laugh. She only nodded. The council probe arrived without sound, without ceremony, without permission. It hovered above Earth's ionosphere cloaked in fractal refraction fields, invisible to satellites, invisible to men. But not to them. The Ilari women felt it before they saw it. A humming in their bones, a pressure behind the eyes, the unmistakable weight of judgment. Siri knew what it meant the moment her vision flickered in warning. Observer status revoked. Direct oversight imminent. They had run out of time. "They'll come for the child," Vetra said, pacing the length of the apartment lab. Her voice lacked its usual edge. It was tight, measured. "We're no longer unsupervised. Protocol permits immediate extraction." "They'll terminate her," Tanari added, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Siri, the fetus, your child, won't survive the transition to orbital containment." "I know," Siri said softly. Daniel stood next to her, unreadable. His arm rested protectively across her shoulders. "Then we don't let them take her." A moment of silence fell across the room. The kind of silence that precedes betrayal or revolution. The choice was still unspoken, but its shape hung heavy in the air. Zelina stepped forward. "What you're proposing is heresy." "No," Siri said, voice stronger now. "What they're doing is stagnation disguised as purity." Zelina looked at her for a long time, then finally said, "You love him." Siri nodded. "And this love, this emotion, it's enough to defy your own species?" "I'm not defying them," she said. "I'm showing them what they've forgotten." Daniel reached into his backpack and pulled out a notebook. Its pages filled with diagrams, biology notes, and hastily scribbled entries in his cramped, human handwriting. "I've been tracking everything," he said. "Her vitals, hormonal shifts, structural rebalancing. You may not want to believe this, but Siri's body is adapting to carry our child. It's not a mistake. It's intended, engineered by something deeper than design." Vetra took the notebook with hesitant hands and scanned it rapidly. Her expression changed, confusion giving way to awe. "It's not just adaptation," she murmured. "Her DNA isn't resisting the change. It's embracing it, integrating. Tanari snorted. A miracle fetus. This is what we've come to. Vetra didn't look up. If you could see what I'm seeing, you wouldn't call it that. You'd call it evolution. The door pulse read. Perimeter breach alert. They're here, Zelina said. The council had not come in force. Only a single envoy ship. That alone was warning enough. The Yulari did not need numbers. They needed only the certainty of command. The envoy would not arrive to speak. It would arrive to collect. They had hours, perhaps less. Zelina stood at the center of the room. She looked at each of them in turn, her posture no longer imperial but uncertain. She had led them here. But now, this changes everything, she said. We have one chance. To run? Asked Nari. To choose, Zelina replied. That night, the group fractured. Tanari packed her field gear and transmitted a message to the envoy. They've been compromised, she said flatly. The fetus is live. Termination has failed. They're refusing extraction. On the other side of the room, Daniel crouched next to Siri, hand gently resting over her stomach. Her breathing was shallow. The child was growing faster now, far beyond human or Yulari gestation rates. How long do I have? She asked Vetra. Vetra checked the readouts. 32 hours. Maybe. And then, either your body rejects it, or becomes something else entirely. Zelina tapped into the university's infrastructure, repurposing its outdated emergency tunnels for transport. We move at first light. I've plotted a stealth path to the shipyard in the mountains. If we can get you aboard the scout vessel. You're helping us escape? Daniel asked, incredulous. I'm protecting my science, she answered. This child is the only meaningful discovery our people have made in 200 years. I won't let it be erased. Tanari reappeared in the doorway. They already know. The ship is descending. The council's reclaimer will arrive within hours. No one spoke. That word, reclaimer, meant the end of things. Siri stood. No more hiding. We fight. Tanari stepped forward, towering over her. You're not a warrior. I am now, Siri said. They left at dawn. 4 alien women, and a single human man carrying the unborn bridge between 2 civilizations. The escape was not silent. Reclaimer probes descended through the clouds like spears of blue flame. Human bystanders screamed, fled, recorded with shaking phones. The Yulari ran, not because they were afraid, but because they knew what was at stake. In the mountain pass, the scout ship flickered into visibility. It was sleek, sharp-edged, pulsing faintly like a heart. Zelina sprinted to it, activating its launch cycle. Behind them, the reclaimer ship cracked the sky open. A shimmering rift bloomed, wide and blinding, and from it descended a single figure clad in obsidian armor, faceless, silent, designed not to argue, but to erase. Tanari stepped forward, placing herself between the figure and the others. Don't do this, she said. You've abandoned your directive. The reclaimer responded, its voice hollow and multiplied. You are infected, corrupted. No, she said. I've remembered who I was before protocol. The reclaimer moved. In 1 second, Tanari launched forward, striking with the weight of centuries of martial perfection. The clash was brutal. Silent. Alien. They moved too fast for human eyes to follow. Daniel shielded Siri with his body, dragging her toward the scout ship as the ground trembled beneath them. Vetra shouted coordinates, initiating the lift sequence. Tanari won't hold forever, she cried. Zelina pulled Siri up the ramp. Daniel paused. She's buying us time. We can't let it be for nothing. Inside the ship, alarm screamed. The hull shuddered. Siri collapsed to her knees. It's happening, she gasped. Daniel caught her just as her body began to glow, not metaphorically, but literally. Bioluminescent veins traced patterns across her skin. Her eyes flared white. The child was coming. Zelina dropped to her knees, scanning. She's stabilizing, adapting to the birth. It's rewriting her cellular matrix in real time. She'll survive? Daniel asked. If it continues like this, yes. Outside, Tanari fell. Her body slammed into the dirt, unmoving. The reclaimer advanced. Zelina activated the cloaking field. Vetra, we need jump propulsion, now. I need 30 seconds. We have 20. Inside the ship, Siri screamed. Daniel held her, whispering something soft and broken. Then silence, a breath, and the child was born, not in violence, not in horror, but in light. She was small but strong. Her skin shifted in color from pale rose to golden bronze, her eyes large and glowing faintly. Her first breath sounded like music. Daniel wept. Siri reached for her daughter, tears falling freely. The ship surged upward. Zelina initiated atmospheric breach. Below them, the reclaimers stared up as they vanished into cloud and fire. On the ship's floor, Tenaria's blade lay abandoned, her sacrifice carved into memory. They were safe. For now. But Siri knew peace was temporary. Her daughter's eyes opened, and in them, she saw something vast. A connection. Thought, not infantile, but ancient. She's speaking, Siri whispered. Daniel stared in wonder. What is she saying? She's not speaking in words. Siri looked at Zelina, then Vetra. She's remembering. The ship drifted into orbit. Behind them, Earth burned with questions. Ahead of them, the stars waited with silence. But inside the vessel, something new had begun. The child did not cry. She opened her eyes and the ship fell silent. Even the hum of its ion pulse dimmed, as if recognizing the weight of her birth. Daniel held her against his chest, eyes wide, heart thunderous beneath his ribs. She was impossibly small, and yet the gravity around her felt immense. Like a star collapsing into its first breath of fusion. Her skin radiated a heat that wasn't warmth, but life. Ancient, new, unfiltered. Siri lay exhausted, draped in a heat-shielding blanket. Body still glowing with residual energy from the transformation. Her breathing was slow, but steady. Her eyes, though clouded with fatigue, never left the infant in Daniel's arms. She's stable, Zelina said, her voice tight, hands working rapidly over the console. Vitals are within range. No rejection indicators. She's more than stable, Vetra added, studying her own portable scanner with a quiet reverence. She's transcendent. Her neural pathways are developing in dimensions we don't even map. She's aware, Daniel whispered. I can feel it, not just instinct. She knows us. The child reached out with one tiny hand and placed it against his chest. A tingling sensation flooded him, not pain, not heat, but something like resonance. For a moment, Daniel saw flashes not his own. Stars collapsing, the memory of glass under alien feet, the sensation of wind on a planet he'd never walked. Thoughts that weren't thoughts. A flood of everything. She's communicating, Siri said weakly. With who? Zelina asked. With us, Siri replied. With everything. Behind them, the reclaimer ship still hovered in Earth's upper atmosphere. The Yulari High Council had not yet attacked, but they were watching, waiting, measuring the risk. They'll come again, Vetra said, in greater numbers. The child represents everything they've suppressed. Evolution, unpredictability, emotion. Hope, Daniel said, cradling his daughter. We can't go back to Earth, Zelina said, but we also can't run forever. I don't want to run, Siri said. She sat up slowly, Daniel supporting her. I want her to live, she continued, to be seen, not hidden, not feared. Daniel nodded. Then we show them. Vetra raised a brow. And how do you propose we do that? Send an announcement to the galaxy? Dear Empire, your perfect system has just been rewritten by a girl with a heart and 2 worlds in her blood? Zelina's eyes narrowed in thought. Actually, maybe we do. The scout ship was not built for diplomacy. It had no weapons, no shields powerful enough to withstand a council barrage. But it had one advantage, the child herself. Wherever she walked, things changed. The ship's systems responded to her presence without instruction. Organic interfaces rewrote themselves in her proximity. Information passed between screens that weren't connected. And when she cried just once, in her first show of distress, the power grid across the ship surged with enough force to temporarily knock out orbiting satellites. She's not just a hybrid, Zelina whispered. She's a nexus. She's life the way it was meant to evolve, Siri said. Beyond boundaries, beyond rules. Daniel placed her gently in Siri's arms. The child calmed immediately. She needs a name, he said. Siri looked down at her daughter, eyes welling. Ellerin. The syllables floated, soft and new. Zelina entered the coordinates manually. Not for home, not for exile, but for something different. A neutral space station at the galactic edge where observation became diplomacy. A place forbidden to most but known to few. The interstice. There, she said, we make our stand. Not with weapons. With her. The flight was not long, but the weight of what they were doing stretched time thin. As they approached the station, silent transmissions crackled. Alerts, warnings, sensor pings. Someone had already told them. The docking bay was empty, yet full of tension. Armed guards waited, weapons lowered but ready. At the center stood an envoy of the council, tall, sleek, faceless. You have violated protocol, it said as they disembarked. You will surrender the hybrid for termination and study. No, Siri said, her voice not trembling. You will look at her. She is an abomination, the envoy stated. She is proof that your minds have degraded. Daniel stepped forward, holding Ellerin. She's proof your system is afraid. Something shifted then. Ellerin's eyes blinked slowly, deliberately. Everyone, human, Yulari, machine, froze. And then she projected, not through words, through memory. She shared her mother's birth, her father's wonder. She showed the council the moment Siri first touched emotion, the moment Daniel chose love over fear, the moment Zelina stopped obeying and started thinking. She gave them each a glimpse of potential, not as data, but as truth, unfiltered, undeniable. The envoy staggered, its weapon power down. Silence ruled the station. And then, for the first time in recorded Yulari history, the envoy knelt. Behind it, the guards lowered their arms. The silence cracked, not with violence, but with understanding. She's rewriting more than biology, Vatra whispered. She's rewriting choice. Within the week, the council initiated review protocols. Quietly, without announcement, they suspended the program that had sterilized emotional genetics across generations. Siri was summoned, not as a fugitive, but as a guest. Daniel was offered protection as the first human envoy to the Yulari. Vatra was appointed to oversee a new branch of biological study, integrative evolution. Zelina declined promotion and instead became guardian to Ellerin's security detail, though no one could truly guard her better than herself. Tenari's remains were returned to Earth, beneath the willow tree where Daniel and Siri first met. Her name became part of both Yulari and human archives, a warrior who chose legacy over obedience. And Ellerin grew, faster than any child, and yet in no rush. She played on starlit decks and spoke to machines that had never responded to words before. She dreamed awake and mapped planets she hadn't seen. She never forgot who she was, or what she carried. Sometimes she asked about Earth, about trees and rivers and books that smelled like old stories. When she was old enough to walk unaided, Siri took her back, hidden, cloaked, but smiling. They visited the university, the willow tree. Daniel showed her the library where her mother once asked too many questions. And when she stood under the open sky for the first time, Ellerin looked up and said simply, "The stars are closer here." Daniel wrapped an arm around Siri. "No," he said, watching their daughter lift her arms to the wind. "You are." The whispers began not among the Yulari, nor among humans, but somewhere in between. On a mining colony orbiting the gas giant Ephyros 3, a maintenance worker with no name and too many debts stumbled upon a child in a field of broken glass. The child didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't breathe, not exactly, but she glowed just faintly, as if holding back a sun beneath her skin. When the man touched her, the rusted machines around him hummed to life. Not fixed, transformed, upgraded, smarter than before. By the time he staggered back to the outpost to report it, the child was gone, but the memory stayed, and so did the change. In the months that followed Ellerin's birth, the galaxy did not erupt in war, nor did it heal. It shifted, quietly like tectonic plates grinding beneath still soil. Siri knew it was coming before anyone else did. She stood in the gravity garden of the interstice, her daughter walking beside her, fingers trailing along the flowering vines engineered from 9 worlds. The leaves leaned toward Ellerin as she passed. The soil pulsed with her steps. Siri felt pride, but also unease. "She's dreaming again," Siri whispered to Zelina, who stood at the edge of the arboretum, arms folded behind her back. "She never stopped," Zelina said. "She's always dreaming." "No," Siri said. "This time it's louder. She's seeing things she hasn't yet lived. Things not from me, not from Daniel. She's reaching too far, too fast. She's evolving. She's broadcasting." Zelina didn't argue. She had been monitoring Ellerin's mental activity through indirect probes, harmless, observational. But even they had begun short-circuiting. Ellerin's mind wasn't just growing. It was networking, touching frequencies the Yulari didn't even classify. That night, Siri confronted her daughter directly. They sat inside a chamber of softly glowing walls. Ellerin looked older now, no longer a baby, not quite a child. She changed day to day, her growth nonlinear, governed by no biological timeline known to either parent. "You've been sending signals," Siri said, voice steady. Ellerin tilted her head. "I didn't mean to hide it. To whom are you sending them?" Ellerin blinked slowly. "To the ones who remember." Siri felt a chill. "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet," Ellerin said. "But they're listening." The following week, an unregistered vessel appeared outside the interstice. No transponder. No official language signature. Just silence. Daniel was the first to spot it. He had taken to observing Ellerin from a distance lately, watching her like a man trying to understand the storm he once helped summon. She had his eyes, his stubbornness. But something else lived in her now, something old and unfinished. "Someone's here," he said as the alarm echoed down the corridors. Zelina was already in the control room. "No known designation," she said. "Not council. Not human. Not rogue." "Do we hail it?" Vetra asked, seated beside her. Ellerin entered barefoot, untouched by urgency. "They won't answer," she said. "Not with words." The ship docked without resistance. Inside it stood a woman, or something like a woman. Her skin shimmered, not with color but with movement, like liquid memory. Her voice came not from her mouth, but from everywhere. "I heard her," the entity said, nodding toward Ellerin. "She called to us. We didn't forget." Zelina stepped forward, flanked by council envoys and human security. "Identify yourself." The entity smiled, an expression not quite familiar. "We are the Orlith, long silent, long buried, but not gone." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You're not Yulari. Before Yulari, before council, before structure." Ellerin walked to her, unafraid. "You remember," Ellerin said simply. The woman nodded. "We remember what was erased. You are the first voice in 1,000 years who can remember." Siri stepped between them. "What do you want with my daughter?" The Orlith turned slowly. "She is not yours. She is not his. She is the first, but not the last. And if she survives, we all do." The council was not pleased. A full tribunal was summoned within 48 hours. Yulari envoys, human diplomats, artificial judges. The Orlith was declared a relic of the pre-order civilizations. Unstable, exiled, forgotten. They were deemed extinct for a reason. And Ellerin's existence, once a miracle, now stood trial again. "They fear her," Daniel said to Siri in their quarters, both of them staring out the viewport at the stars. "First they hated her. Then they bowed. Now they fear again." "Because she's waking things up," Siri replied. "Not just others. Them, the parts of themselves they buried." Daniel reached for her hand. She took it. "Do we run again?" Siri shook her head. "No. This time we teach her to stand." That night, Ellerin disappeared. No alarms. No breaches. Just absence. Her bed remained untouched. Her neural signature flickered out like a candle. They searched for hours on foot through sensors in orbit. Eventually, They found her at the old docking bay, standing beside the Orolive vessel. She had opened the hull with her touch. Siri and Daniel arrived breathless. "What are you doing?" Siri demanded. "I have to go," Ellerin said. "They're waiting, and they're scared." "You're 8 days old," Daniel said. "Or 8 years. Or both. I don't care. You're still our child." Ellerin looked up at them, ancient and innocent. Then, "Trust me." The Orolive stepped forward, but said nothing. They were only the vessel now. Zelina arrived, flanked by Vetra, armed but not aggressive. "She's beyond us now," Zelina whispered. "But I won't stop her, because I think we were always meant to follow her." The Council did not approve. They labeled Ellerin as unstable evolutionary catalyst, a threat to order. But the message had already spread, not by transmission, but by memory. Across systems, others awoke. A child on a distant moon suddenly began speaking in a language no one taught. An android began weeping in a locked maintenance chamber. A woman long paralyzed moved without implants. And every one of them dreamed the same image. A girl with glowing eyes standing beneath a willow tree on Earth, her hands open, calling. The space between stars is not empty. It remembers. Ellerin drifted through that memory, aboard the Orolive vessel, her body wrapped in quiet light. She did not sleep. She no longer needed to. Time, for her, had begun to stretch differently. No longer linear, no longer bound to breath or heartbeat. The Orolive spoke rarely. When they did, their voices echoed not in her ears but inside her thoughts. They did not instruct her. They waited. They observed. "You are what we once feared," they told her. "You are what we now follow." In the silence of deep transit, Ellerin's presence caused the ship itself to change. Hallways bent. Lights adjusted. Entire systems shifted toward organic symbiosis, as though she wasn't traveling inside the ship, but becoming part of it. Back on the interstice, Siri stood still at the same window every morning. She didn't need confirmation. She felt the absence like phantom limbs. Something in her chest, in her cells, stayed connected to her daughter, even light years away. Daniel had grown quieter. He still taught at the Human Ilari Education Exchange, still wore his worn canvas jacket with too many pockets, but his smile had become rare. One morning, he spoke while brewing tea. "She's not coming back the same," he said. "She's not coming back at all," Siri replied softly. He looked at her, eyes tired but honest. "You believe that?" "No, I know it, but I also know she will return with purpose." Zelina approached him hours later, a security file trembling in her hands. She didn't bother knocking. "There's been a signal." Siri's eyes lifted. "From her?" "Not directly. From what followed her." The file flickered open across the glass table. It was a system-wide echo, fragment of language, geometry, memory. A pattern repeating across ancient satellites, long-dead planets, and organic implants buried deep in select beings. Ellerin had awakened something old. "The echoes are forming coordinates," Zelina explained. "Scattered. Obscure. We think they lead to dormant systems. Entire civilizations sealed off before the Council existed." Daniel leaned in. "She's collecting them." "More than that," Vetra said, entering with a second set of data streams. "She's reactivating them." They showed footage of moons igniting with bioluminescent forests, of once-dead cities where glass spires lifted toward unknown stars, of creatures thought extinct waking from stasis and looking toward the sky. "It's not evolution," Vetra whispered. "It's remembering." But memory, like fire, spreads. The Council grew restless. Their grip, built on logic and genetic control, could not withstand dreams. And now dreams were returning in every form. Symbols in the skin of infants, mutating art in hidden colonies, and in one case, a man who opened his mouth and spoke only in starlight. The word Ellerin became sacred in some places, blasphemy in others. And then came the warning. A signal from a sector near the dark nebula of Cressa 9. Distorted but decipherable. "They're building a null net," Zelina said after analysis. "Something designed to suppress nonlinear consciousness." If deployed, it would sever Ellorin's link to the network she's awakening. Daniel looked ill. They want to cut her off from everything she's becoming. They want to contain what they can't control, Siri said. Zelina didn't argue. Siri turned away from the window. Then we stopped them. She activated her own Auralith node, one left behind when Ellorin departed. She had never dared to use it until now. When her fingers touched the core, it pulsed once and then opened. Across her vision, thousands of points of light bloomed. People, systems, memories. A living net of awakened consciousness stretching far beyond what the Ilari had mapped. They weren't alone anymore. They never had been. She whispered into the node, not with words, but with the shape of her love. And far away, Ellorin heard. In a chamber woven from thought and biology, she opened her eyes. The Auralith ship tilted course without sound or permission. It followed her will now. The known net must not fall, the Auralith warned. If it deploys, entire civilizations will fall silent again. Then we wake them first, Ellorin said. She arrived not with fleets, but with resonance. As she moved through systems, she left behind activation pulses, triggering dormant life, awakening suppressed empathy in artificially dulled populations, and disarming conflict simply by being seen. But the Council was not idle. In a final act of desperation, they activated the vault, a prison station lost a myth where dissidents, dreamers, and divergents have been placed in stasis over centuries. Inside were artists, children, thinkers, those who refused to conform. They had remained untouched, forgotten. Until now, Ellorin arrived just as the vault was preparing for jettison, its cargo about to be launched into a star under guise of system failure. She didn't speak. She simply entered, and every stasis pod opened at once. Inside those prisoners, something remembered her, even those who had never met her. They rose not in revolt, but in song, a language of tones and thought that spread through every corridor of the station. And the guards dropped their weapons and wept. It was not a battle. It was a return. Outside, the null net fractured, its architecture disrupted not by violence, but by resonance too pure to filter. Back on the interstice, Siri felt it. A pulse. She looked at Daniel. She did it. Ellorin returned. No ship, no ceremony. She walked through the atmospheric gates of the interstice barefoot, her presence causing the temperature to rise 2 degrees without damage. People lined the corridors, not in fear, in reverence. Daniel stepped forward, arms trembling. Ellorin smiled. "I'm still your daughter," she said. He pulled her into his arms, tears soaking her shoulder. "And so much more," he whispered. She looked at Siri. "I saw what they feared," Ellorin said. "It wasn't me. It was choice. It was the idea that emotion could guide destiny." Siri nodded. "And now?" "They remember. They all do." Zelina approached. "What now, Ellorin?" The girl turned to the viewport. "We build what comes after. Not from power. From connection." As she walked to the garden again, the flowers bloomed in her wake, though it wasn't spring. The vines whispered in colors never seen. And somewhere on another planet, a child opened their eyes and spoke Ellorin's name without ever having heard it. The stars above didn't shine brighter. She did. She had become a signal, not just to ships or species or scientists, but to time itself. Ellorin's name, spoken, dreamed, even remembered, now carried weight. In the markets of the floating city of KYR-9, travelers paid in minerals just to hear her story. In the sentient spires of Cathari Prime, architects claimed their structures had begun responding to her frequency. And on Earth, in quiet corners untouched by war or policy, children began humming a melody no one had taught them, all at once. And yet, she still bled. It happened on the edge of Sector Aurealis, a scouting moon long dead, yet alive with echoes of the old world. Ellorin stood at its center, surrounded by a silent forest of silver crystal, reaching to the skies like frozen lightning. She was alone. The moment came like a shiver, one step forward, then sudden collapse. A blade, not forged but formed, caught her from behind, not made of metal, Not even energy. It was absence carved into shape. The absence of light, of warmth, of memory. She dropped to her knees, and the figure stepped forward. It wasn't counsel. It wasn't Orlith. It wasn't anything she'd seen. But she knew it. I have no name, it said, because I was what came before all names. She tried to rise, blood shimmering like liquid fire across the crystal beneath her. You are a fracture, the figure said, and I have come to seal it. Your fear, she whispered. I am correction. In orbit, the Orlith screamed to the void, bending time to reach her. But the figure raised a hand, and the sky itself warped, sealing them out. You have awakened too much, it said, and not all that awakens wishes to be seen. Ellerin coughed once, her breath laced with stardust. You're part of the network, she said, buried in the old signals. Suppressed. I was buried, it admitted, because what I am is not peace. I am reset. She reached toward it and saw a memory not her own, a war before the Council, before the Alaria even formed, when civilization had tried to grow faster than it could understand. The result wasn't extinction. It was this, a failsafe, a living algorithm forged into being to prevent too much connection, to silence voices before they could overwrite the system. You're afraid of love, she said. I am afraid of noise. And then she smiled. It wasn't defiance. It was recognition. You're already failing, she said. Around them, the crystal forest trembled. She didn't fight with strength. She sang. A single imperfect note. It traveled not through sound, but through shared thought. To Siri, to Daniel, to Vetra, to Zelina, to every awakened soul she had touched in dreams and data and resonance. And they answered. Across space, a chorus rose. Unplanned, unrehearsed. Each voice unique, flawed, real. Human, alien, artificial, ancient, new. The failsafe screamed. But it was not anger. It was confusion. Ellerin stood again, still bleeding, and held out her hand. You were made to prevent collapse, she said. But I'm not collapse. I'm continuation. The forest shattered, not in violence, but in release, and the figure vanished. When the Orlith reached her, she was unconscious, but alive. The wound had not closed. It glowed now, a scar shaped like a spiral, moving slowly across her shoulder. She has marked the system, the Orlith said. Now all that was dormant knows her. Back on the interstice, Siri placed a hand to her chest, feeling the echo even before the message arrived. She's been hurt. Daniel nodded, but not broken. The council reconvened, divided now between those who saw Ellerin as a bridge and those who feared she was a fuse. Her actions had destabilized power in more than one quadrant. Old systems were collapsing without war, simply opting out. Sentient cities had begun rewriting their own policies. Creatures once designated as subintelligent fauna had started asking questions. You're unraveling civilization, a council speaker told her, weeks later when she walked again. No, she replied. I'm giving it back its voice. They offered her containment. She declined. They offered her alliance. She smiled, but she did not stay. She left with Siri and Daniel, not to run, but to witness. Her presence wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. Where she went, truth followed, and truth, once seen, could not be unseen. Vetra led a new research division focused on conscious biological evolution. She published papers under both her name and Ellerin's. They were read, debated, banned, and reprinted across 3 systems. Zelina stayed behind at the interstice, becoming the new director of open thought. She opened diplomatic channels with civilizations once erased from the map. Not all welcomed her. Some did. Siri returned to Earth once more with Daniel. This time, not in secrecy. They stood in the university courtyard, under the willow tree, where it had all begun. Ellerin stood between them. She doesn't need us now, Siri said. No, Daniel said, but we'll always be part of her. Ellerin looked at the sky, not up, but through it. Somewhere, something was calling again, not in fear, in hope.